ever find yourself wishing for things you don't have? What sort of things do you wish for? Have you ever actually got something you wished for? Hello everyone, I'm Kathleen Pelly. Welcome to Journey with Story. I wonder what sort of things some of you wish for. I think most of us at some time or another wish for impossible things. Maybe we wish we were taller or smaller, or richer or more famous. But of course, usually wishing for something does not make it happen. And we know if we really want something, then we have to work for it, not wish for it. Today's story is a tale from Sweden about a young boy called Ole, who meets a bird called the Magpie that teaches him a valuable lesson about wishing for things. Before we begin, remember, if you want some colouring sheets to accompany our stories, go to www.journeywithstory.com and click on the Patreon button. Or you can buy some colouring books from our website if you click on the store button at the top. Now, let's take a journey with salt on a magpie's tail. Making a wish isn't hard at all. In fact, it's the easiest thing to do in the world. But to make that wish a reality, well, that is something else entirely. And nobody learned that lesson better than our lazy boy Ole, who wanted and wanted, but would do nothing to make his wishes come true. He wished for things so often that his mother teased him about it. "And what are we asking for today, Ole?" she would ask every morning before she headed out to work. "A pocket knife? Or perhaps a sled? Or..." And so instead of helping his mother with any of the household chores, Ole spent his time wondering, daydreaming, and listing all the things he wanted. Ole and his mother had been poor ever since Ole's father passed away many years ago, so they could afford very little. Every minute of every day, he would think of something new to wish for. One day, as he was out and about, he spotted an old man sitting on a bench with his eyes closed. "Are you okay, old man?" Ole asked. "Oh, yes, I'm just resting," the man replied. Ole was relieved. The man was so still, Ole had worried that he may have been dead. "Would you like some advice?" the old man asked the boy, his eyes now wide open, with a sparkle in them. Ole frowned. He didn't exactly want unsolicited advice, but he figured that it couldn't hurt. "Go on then, old man." The old man broke into a smile. "I hear you wandering these streets, wishing and wishing, but how often do they come true?" "They don't," Ole admitted. "Exactly. But I know how you can change that." "Is that so?" Ole asked, his hopes rising. The old man nodded. "Have you heard of the legend of the Magpie?" Ole shook his head. "They say that if you sprinkle a pinch of salt on the tail of a magpie, anything you wish for will come true. Go to the woods and find one. There is only one catch." "Oh, what?" Ole held his breath in anticipation. "You must make your wish quickly. If the salt falls off the magpie's tail before you've made your wish, It won't come true. But if it doesn't, I'll get anything I ask for. Indeed, my son. Ole could hardly contain his excitement. Within minutes, he had run home to retrieve a bag of salt, large enough to grant him 100 wishes, and shoved it deep into his pocket. Without stopping for breath, he ran into the forest in search of a magpie. Ole thought it would be easy to sprinkle salt on the tail of a magpie. But boy, was he wrong. What the old man didn't tell Ole was that magpies cannot be as easily fooled as, say, a pheasant or a duck. No, magpies are intelligent birds, if not one of the most intelligent animals to exist. So even though Ole saw many magpies in the forest, he was disappointed to find that the black and white birds with the shiny blue-green wings flew away before he could get close to them. In fact, sometimes they seemed to taunt him, waiting for him to get very close until they flapped away, their caws like laughter. Ole sat down, exhausted between the trees, the hope he had once dissipating. Oh, my wishes will never come true, he sighed to himself as he leaned against the rough but comforting trunk of a pine tree. Ole was just drifting off to sleep when he heard something. "Ole, Ole," a voice called. Ole looked up, and in between the branches he could see it. A magpie looking down at him. "You can talk!" he exclaimed.
"Yes,"
the magpie answered.
"I hear that you want your wishes to come true. Is that right?"
"Yes, it is."
"Well, I can help you, but you will need to help me first."
Ole sat up straight, his neck straining from looking up at the magpie. "What do you need?"
"I need a knife, a fine knife, to clean my claws. If you bring one to me, I will sit still long enough for you to sprinkle salt on my tail."
A knife for a wish? It was simple enough, right? Surely the magpie wouldn't lie to him. Yes, the other magpies had teased him, but this one spoke. He seemed honourable enough. "Okay, I will get you a knife," Ole promised. But of course Ole had no money. How could he ever afford a fine knife? All the knives at home were dull with use. Ole thought for a moment, until he realized he knew exactly what to do. In the forest there were enough berries to feed an entire village. Ole decided to use this to his advantage. The next day Ole returned to the forest with one bucket in each hand and filled them up with berries he picked from the bushes. Blueberries, cloudberries, lingonberries, and blackcurrants stained his fingers, but it was worth it. When he took them to the market, the townsfolk couldn't help but be charmed by the labour of his hands and by all his goods. By the end of the day, Ole could afford to buy a cheap pocket knife. It wasn't a fine knife, but he was sure it was sharp enough to do the job. Before returning to the forest the next morning, he filled his pocket with salt. Ole was about to get his wish. "Oh, Magpie, I've got your knife," he called out as he arrived at the same pine tree he visited only the day before yesterday. The magpie flew down to where Ole stood and took one look at the knife before shaking his head and flapping his wings with agitation.
"That will not do. Have you seen the material? I require the finest steel, not whatever copper this is."
Before Ole could make a case for how hard he had worked for the knife, the magpie had flown up into the tree. "Okay, what if I get you a better knife?" he yelled. "Will that do?"
No, it will not. Now, what I really want is a sled.
"A sled?" Ole queried. What could a magpie do with a sled?
Yes, a sled. I'm quite tired of using my wings, you know.
Ole could not imagine the magpie on a sled, but if it would get him a wish... "I will get your sled," Ole promised. And so, with a pocket knife the magpie had rejected now in his possession, Ole began thinking of other ways to make money. He could only get so far by picking and selling berries, so Ole thought of something more lucrative he could do. He could use the knife to whittle spoons, bowls, and wooden toys to sell at the market. Satisfied with his new idea, he set to work. Again, the townspeople could see the time and effort that Ole had put into crafting his items, and it only took him a few days before he sold out and was able to buy a used sled. Once again he went to the forest, his pockets lined with salt, and presented the sled to the magpie.
What is this you have brought me? This is not what I wanted.
The magpie screeched before flying off into one of the branches. Ole sighed. "Oh, it's a sled for..."
No, what I really want now is a wagon.
Ole couldn't believe the magpie's ingratitude. But what choice did he have? Soon he was on his way once more. He began whittling again, but this time he used his new sled to make deliveries outside of town to reach folks with deeper pockets. He was soon able to keep some money aside to help out his mother with their household costs. Once he had made enough money to afford a wagon, not a used one, but a new one, he returned to the forest. The magpie strutted across the wagon with its beak turned up.
This is not the one I want.
Ole was so disappointed. He couldn't please the magpie, it seemed, no matter what he tried. "Okay, I will get a..."
No.
Actually, the magpie said.
What I really want is a fine horse and carriage.
"Sorry?"
Yes, a horse and carriage.
Ole couldn't imagine what the magpie would do with the horse and carriage, but again he went away to earn some more money. He continued whittling and making deliveries, but now that he had a wagon, he was also able to haul firewood across the country for people to burn in the winter. Working hard at both trades, Ole was able to support his mother and eventually earn enough to afford a horse and carriage fit for royals. But when the magpie saw the horse and carriage, he was not impressed.
I do not particularly like the colour of this horse,
he complained. Ole shook his head. Why could he not get it right? "Okay, I will get you..."
A house. Yes, that is what you'll get me. It is getting mighty cold out here, and I do need to stay warm. Unless you don't want your wish, that is.
So Ole went back to work, carving and delivering. However, he soon found it too much for one person, so he hired other boys to help him with the trade. His business had soon expanded so much that he was able to move out of his mother's house and buy a nice little home at the edge of town, near the forest where the magpie resided. From his yard he called for the magpie and presented the house.
What is this? This is not a house. This is a shed for peasants. I require a castle.
Ole was hurt by the magpie. He had spent time, money, and energy on this house. How could the magpie not see that? "Okay, fine, I will buy your castle, but then..."
No, a castle won't do. What I need now is an abundance of gold coins. Then I can buy all that I want without having to go through you.
Ole thought that, for once, the magpie might be right. So much could have been avoided if only the magpie had chosen the things he desired for himself. So Ole worked even harder. He saved carefully and expanded his business, eventually earning enough money to buy not just one castle, but 2. When he showed the magpie a sack overflowing with gold coins, the magpie finally said,
"That is what I wanted. You have done well, Ole. Now you may sprinkle the salt on my tail and make your wish once and for all."
Ole broke into a huge smile. The time had come at long last. He retrieved the salt from his pocket and sprinkled it onto the magpie's tail.
"What is your wish, Ole?"
the magpie asked. Ole thought about it. What did he wish for? All this time he had been so busy working and earning money that he had completely forgotten what it was he wished for. When he had first set out to have his wish granted by the magpie, he had been poor and could afford very little. But now he could not think of a single thing that he wanted. The magpie gave Ole 3 seconds, but Ole could not come up with anything. The magpie flipped his tail with a laugh, and off flew all the salt Ole had sprinkled on it. Ole was filled with anger and frustration, feeling tricked by the magpie. Finally, he thought of what he wanted and announced, "I want a cage that I can put you in."
"That's not very nice,"
the magpie said with a frown.
"Why would you want to do that? Have I not given you all that you wanted?"
"You have not given me anything," Ole exclaimed.
"No?"
The magpie tilted his head quizzically.
"Because of me, did you not end up with a knife, and a sled, and a wagon, and a—"
The magpie reeled off all the things he had requested from Ole and turned away. And Ole realized these were things that he himself had wanted.
"And did you not get all of this without a single wish?"
said the magpie.
"Don't you see? You got all of this with hard work. Don't you think this lesson was a greater gift than any wish?"
Stunned, Ole realized the magpie was right. He had attained all those things he once could only dream of without making a single wish. He had earned them himself. You're right," Ole conceded. But the magpie had flown off, a single speck of salt still sticking to his tail. Well, I think you know what this story's souvenir is, right? Yes, instead of wishing for things, we just need to work hard to get what we want without depending on daydreams or wishing. Before I go, grown-ups, mums and dads, can I ask you again, if you've not done so already, take a moment to think of one person, a family member or a friend or a neighbour, who you think would enjoy this podcast. Can you recommend it to them and maybe even do it on Instagram and tag us so we can give you a thank you shout out? Thank you so much, as this greatly helps us to grow our outreach and share our stories with even more people. Cheerio then. Join me next time for Journey with Story.
Music and post-production was by Colette Jonas.